Fasten your seatbelts for the realest Eagles and Sixers YouTuber! One who plays no clickbait and gets to the point! The myth, the legend, Nicky Steves! On the My Channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. I'm simply statue think the slate, dropping unrealistic mags, 2K takes for the clip. Even though cats like that get views closer to the milli, never hear me preach, look on to Philly. Before you watch the Eagles all the way through the early 22, authentic talk, forget what others do. Come to my channel, you know the deal. Yo, boy, always keeps things real. The 24/7, 365 way. Sports content for the reals to fill the day.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to a special edition of the 3-Point Blitz, the Tuesday noon show at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are outdoors enjoying this beautiful weather. And folks, it's an awesome day because today is the very first. That's right. It is basically the opening act of the NBA playoffs because tonight the play-in tournament starts. We start tonight. You got the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat will play. The winner of that game will play the loser of tomorrow's game between the Philadelphia 76ers and the Orlando Magic. And then later to close it out, you got the Portland Trailblazers and Phoenix Suns fighting for the 7th seed. The winner gets the 7th. The loser will have a chop opportunity at the 8th seed against the winner of the LA Clippers versus Golden State Warriors game. That is what is in tap for the play-in tournament. Now, in recent years, we've seen the sports world adapt and adjust. It's no longer just 1 through 8 itself, because now the sports world has created a bit of an opening act, if you will. We've seen it to other places. Baseball did it. We've seen it there. We've seen the NBA do it. It started during COVID, and certainly it has its pros and cons to it. Now, we've come to it. Let's talk about. It is rant of the week time, so we're going to talk a little bit about. Now, the pro to this, to be fair, before we dive into the rant of the week, is when it comes to the play-in, it's kind of like the warm-up act, if you will, to get people ready for the playoffs, because they don't officially count as playoff games. So it's a nice way to kind of get the fans into it. It's like spring training of playoffs, if you will, or the preseason of the playoffs, if you will, which is actually cool. So to do it myself, it's got a nice warm-up vibe to it. Get me ready for what's to come. And to some degree, hey, it does give those 7th or 8th seeds, who are typically the weak link, an opportunity to earn their role in the playoffs and actually win to gain an opportunity, which you could say to some extent fair. Make the weak links prove they actually deserve to be there. But unfortunately, what happens is sometimes you get 9 or 10 seeds winning, and they playing in games they got no business being in. We saw this last year. We saw the 10th seed Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference first defeat the Chicago Bulls 109-90 on April 16th. Then they defeated the Hawks in overtime 123-114 on April 18th last year to officially clinch the number 8 seed. And ultimately they were, let's face it, they were the worst team I've seen in my life to ever play in the NBA playoffs, considering how overmatched they were by the Cleveland Cavaliers, especially in Game 4, where they got blown by triple digits. So unfortunately, sometimes you get those 9 or 10 seeds that might luck their way to 2 wins and get an undeserved playoff spot. And we saw this happen to the Atlanta Hawks a few years back as the 9th seed. They ended up going on a little bit of a run. They ended up making the playoffs. And so far, we haven't seen many play-in teams except the 2023 Lakers, who did go on to defeat. Actually, you had, I believe, do I remember correctly? Was it both the Lakers? And let me check. So 2023, I remember, was the Lakers. They won their game against the T-Wolves. And they got the 7th seed. Then they ended. Oh, wait, that's right. It was the Warriors were the 6th seed. Now I remember. But yeah. So far, we've only seen one series win, if I recall. It was the Lakers in 2023 defeating the Memphis Grizzlies, which started the beginning of the end of that promising Memphis team with Ja Morant. Turned into a dysfunctional soap opera with lots of drama, but unfortunately down to the play-in tournament itself. The unfortunate, sometimes you get those teams that got no business being in the playoffs, that under the traditional format of just 1 through 8 seeds would have no business being there, like the Miami Heat of last year. That was the first time we really saw a true team that had no business being in the playoffs. They were outmatched by the Cavs in every phase of the game. They were outscored, out-hustled, out-rebounded, and out-ball moved. Pretty much everything in all categories. So, unfortunately, sometimes you do get those teams that playing games and playing for opportunities at playoffs they got no business for. Especially sometimes you get like the 10th seed. Like 2023, you had the Charlotte Hornets as the 10th seed. It was 2021-22, I believe. What was it? You had, I'm trying to remember. Like, then you'll get those 9 seeds, like the 36-46 Pelicans a few years back. And then it's ridiculous because I'm going to look at the records for this year and show you guys what I mean. So, unfortunately, there's that downside. You get 9 and 10 teams who don't have any business being in the playoffs are there. Now, this year, to be fair, you got the Charlotte Hornets at 9 seed, or 44-38. All right. You can argue they're at least a somewhat respectable team. But then you look at the Warriors, who finished 37-45 this season, mind you. Now, they have an opportunity on paper to make the playoffs if they can win 2 games. If they somehow get that first win against the Clippers, who've been up and down all season, then you go from there and happen to beat the loser of the Suns Trailblazers game. You got them in the playoffs going against the OKC Thunder. On one hand, to me, if that were to happen, that would be disastrous. That'd be a bad look. It would probably be, let's be real, it would be the follow-up or the successor to last year's Cavs Heat opening round matchup. So I get we know why they do the play-in. Let's face it, it's a ratings and ticket sale grab. And that's why the owners majority support having a play-in, because for some of their teams, even if they're 9 or 10 seeds that they know aren't good enough to make the playoffs, hey, that's additional revenue for a game. Especially if you're the home team in one of those games. Hey, at least that's additional revenue. Sell a few more tickets for one extra game, even if it's just one extra game. And for the NBA executives, they love it because of TV ratings. They get just a little more revenue from the ticket sales of those playing games, a little bit more with the TV ratings, with the highlight views, etc. And trust me, at the end of the day, NBA being a business, they want the dollars. They do, which we get it. It's a business. Business world's ultimately about making money, but the downside to it is the greed, where you get these 9 and 10 seeds, or you get teams like the Chicago Bulls who've been in the play-in, not this year, but the past couple seasons. They get to the play-in, but are a team that ultimately had no business being there at all. And ultimately, it was proven correct because they never earned the 7th or 8th seed through the play-in tournament. They only made the playoffs legitimately one time since this play-in was invented, and actually were in a series, and they lost to the Bucks in the opening round back in 2022, who were the defending champs at the time. Or you remember that time you had in 2022, you had the 9 seed New Orleans Pelicans somehow make it, despite being the 9 seed, short Zion Williamson, which on one hand was admirable, but you had a 9 seed who had no business being in the playoffs, getting completely and utterly decimated in that 2022 opening round. So that's the unfortunate downside that comes with it. That greed sometimes leaves a lot of undeserving teams getting spots they don't deserve. It's similar to the NFL where you get the number 7 seed playing the number 2 seed. Outside that one time where the Packers beat the Cowboys, going against Mike McCarthy's Cowboys, their former coach, you haven't seen a number 7 seed beat a number 2 seed. You had only, out of all the time since 2020 season, with that, you've had 2 compelling 2 versus 7 games in my view. First one, Bills and Colts in 2020, and then the Packers beating the Cowboys in 2023 season. A lot of those other games were games where a 7th seed had no business playing, like the Eagles-Bucks in 2021. Or you've seen like the Broncos-Bills from a few years back. The first time they made the playoffs with Bo Nix, but they weren't ready at all that year. And in the NBA, though, you sometimes have that problem. You get these mismatches. They get no business happening. And unfortunately, that's the downside of it. And why am I ranting about it? Because we need a rant of the week, bro. So you could call us a rhetorical rant if you want to, but it serves its purpose. But now we'll be moving on to something interesting. It happened after Sunday. Doc Rivers, who had been the head coach for the Milwaukee Bucks since early 2024, the Milwaukee Bucks had parted ways following a disappointing season where they didn't even reach the play-in tournament. You had Giannis out with injury most of the season, and there was some talk about Doc Rivers making comments about the team. There was comments made at a team meeting. I know Charles Barkley said it was a punk move by the Bucks players to expose what was said in this meeting, which I feel personally that, hey, I don't think you should put your dirty laundry out there on the internet. From my point of view, I've always believed when it comes to your career and when it comes to your income, don't put your dirty laundry behind the scenes out for the public. They don't need to know what goes on behind the scenes at your job. That should be strictly for the people involved. So I get where he's coming from in that. And I'm not entirely against Barkley of saying, look, it's just a general rule of thumb in any business period. Don't tell the people what's going on behind the scene. Now, I get from the player's standpoint, feeling as if Doc Rivers has a history of deflecting blame and that he doesn't accept accountability for his actions by particularly throwing players under the bus. And there's been a history of this. Josh Smith has said that Doc Rivers has a history of it. We remember the Ben Simmons situation following Game 7. He was asked directly in a press conference, do you feel that you can be a championship contender with Ben Simmons as guard on your roster? And he said, I don't know the answer to that right now. Which ultimately Ben Simmons turned out he wasn't that guy, but it was still not a wise idea from a business standpoint to publicly say you're not sure if this guy has what it takes. Now, granted, Ben Simmons obviously is to blame for his own downfall, but let's not forget, too, especially for the Sixers fans, Doc Rivers did make the mistake of throwing him under the bus publicly. If there was ever a time for Doc to lie publicly, that would have been the time to lie, if there ever was. And unfortunately, he didn't. So he does have a history of it. And we even supposedly that meeting, he said to the players something along the lines of, look at my resume. It speaks for itself. He even told the players, and based off the way it was worded, it condescending way, you can Google my resume, which anybody saying that when they're on the hot seat is defensiveness, period. And I'll say this, I've said it before, I've said it in our little, I'm saying it for you guys the first time. I said if excuse making was an Olympic sport for Doc Rivers throughout his career, he would have 4 or 5, maybe 6 gold medals if that were the case. I mean, he has a history of excuse making. And we also saw there was another comment he made along the lines of, trying to imply that the team wasn't that good, whether he was doing that directly or not. He was asked about the team not making the playoffs once it was official that they weren't making even the play. And he's like, and I've seen some teams that didn't have high expectations that I made the playoffs. We rode to the playoffs. I was expecting this team to be more the same, not the exact words, but it was along the lines of hinting at the idea, oh, I thought this team was good. The players didn't live up to expectations was the takeaway from his comments. Which goes to show that Doc Rivers does have a history of making comments about putting down players in the team in public instead of accepting accountability. And we've also seen Rasheed Wallace has said in an interview, he talked about his one season ring chasing in Boston with that big three, that Doc's one of those coaches that expects the players to make the adjustments themselves instead of calling a timeout, making adjustments to the lineup, changing the matchups, and making adjustments to the offensive strategy. Instead of calling a timeout and say, let's say this was Boston, instead of switching Rondo and Allen, maybe, if Rondo's getting cooked, putting Allen on someone for his defense. Just say as an example, instead of making those adjustments, he expects the players to just automatically do it. And yeah, well, it is up to the players to adjust during the game. The coaches got to do it too, especially from the sideline where they see, okay, maybe a certain matchup isn't favoring us. Maybe our shooting guard's getting cooked. Maybe you better put the point guard on the shooting guard for defensive purposes to slow down the player on the opposing team that's on a roll. That would just be one example of an in-game adjustment. But Doc ultimately has a poor history of doing that. So he does have his flaws as a coach. But with that being said, it's not all horrible for Doc Rivers. I'm not going to trash him, despite being a Sixers fan and despite him playoff struggles with the Sixers being part of his legacy. I got to be fair and call it down the middle. So now this raises the ultimate question of, what is Doc Rivers' legacy? Because even though we don't know for sure what his future holds, if another team will basically be conned into getting his services, I'll say this. For starters, for his legacy, if we're going to put it in small sentences, a few small sentences that come to mind would be, 1, Doc Rivers is the king of the head coach hiring search. Doc Rivers brings his A game to the head coach hiring search. He got the job with the Orlando Magic with no head coaching experience in this 99 offseason. And you got Arcus coming in. Glenn Rivers' legacy is being a choke artist. Another part of his legacy is playoff underachiever. Shout out for longevity. So there's different adjectives, both good and bad, to talk about his legacy. So let's start into it. And of course, you got the infamous blowing 3-1 and 3-2 series leads, which is what Doc Rivers has become known for during the years. And part of the borderline cult worship by the sports media for Doc Rivers, and part of where this Doc Rivers love affair started with the media, actually starts back when he started with the Orlando Magic. Because to be fair, when he started with the Orlando Magic, 99-2000, he went to a team with no superstars. His first season there, you had a soon-to-be superstar in Ben Wallace, who, by the way, the Magic let go before he peaked. But they did go with expectations of being a bottom feeder, top 5 pick in the 2000 draft. They went 41-41 and just missed the playoffs. And Doc Rivers became the first, and I believe the only to date, coach of the year to not see his team make the playoffs, which sounds really stupid, but to be fair, remember, considering the circumstance behind it, you had an Orlando Magic team with no real stars. Shaq had been long gone to LA. Penny Hardaway was gone at this point. T-Mac hadn't joined yet. There was really no true star on that team. You just thought, this team's just taking a spot in the league, and they almost made the playoffs. So that's where kind of the media's love affair for Doc Rivers started, with this idea of, oh my gosh, he's a good coach, which, to be fair, his first year he was, considering he took a horrific team and turned them around. And at the time, too, when he was hired, he was known as a great players coach because during his playing career, Doc Rivers was an excellent role player. He was known for having a good basketball IQ as a coach, as a player. I mean, you think about it, the more I think about him, looked at his stats. If you look at Doc Rivers' career stats, they're not all-time great, but during his plays playing with the Atlanta Hawks and briefly the Los Angeles Clippers during their irrelevant years, I think he was part of the Dominique Wilkins trade, Danny Manning trade, if maybe that was it, or maybe it was just a coincidental free agent sign. But Doc was known as a good role player, and I believe he may have won a Sixth Man of the Year, maybe, or at least he was a runner-up on a few occasions. I'll put it this way. As a player, Doc Rivers was the intelligent role player. As the coach, he's the unsavvy egomaniac. He is, because he may have been a smart role player, egotistical, unsavvy maniac as a coach. But you realize early on, all right, here's a guy to spark. You had then the Orlando Magic with Tracy McGrady, made 3 consecutive playoff appearances, but lost in the first round all 3 times. Most notably, the 2003 when they were up 3-1 over the Detroit Pistons. Sound familiar? Tracy McGrady, it feels so good to move on to the second round post game 4 press conference comments, followed by 3 straight losses. Now, some people at the time probably gave Doc the benefit of the doubt, and they gave Tracy McGrady the flack because of his comments. But through 03-04 season, Doc was fired when the Magic struggled early on. And then he got the job as the Boston Celtics head coach, which at the time people thought was a good hire. In year 1, took a Celtics team led by Paul Pierce, led him to the playoffs, but ultimately another one and done, marking his 4th one and done in 6 seasons as a coach up to that point. But then around 05-06 was when his flaws started to get exposed, because going into that season, Doc Rivers was considered a good regular season coach who just needed to play better in the playoffs. And then when they took that Boston Celtics team to 2 dreadful seasons that followed, everyone began questioning Doc Rivers as a coach. Even Boston sports analyst and Celtics superfan Ben Simmons was clowning him. But then the 08 finals, you had 3 All-Stars, 1 really good role player. Then that being KG, who took over as number 1, Paul Pierce number 2, Ray Allen is a good number 3, and Rajon Rondo, really good number 4. And even they won that championship, and that was the crowning highlight of Doc Rivers' career. Once he won that championship, a lot of people were ready to crown him, because remember, early on, he seemed like he was going to be a really good coach early on. He made a great first impression with the Orlando Magic, taking a team that on paper was a dumpster fire and leading them to the 9th seed, just short of the playoffs, was where that created a favorable first impression. So by this point, flash forward years later, he's a champion. Oh, people gave him the benefit of the doubt big time. But then as the years went along, we started to see Doc Rivers transform from a championship winning coach and a potential undisputed Hall of Fame coach to a guy who's historically known as an underachiever. We've seen all the constant 3-1 blown leads, 3-2 blown leads throughout the years. And we remember, do we even need to get started? We remember, even with the Clippers, we saw several 3-1 blown leads. But I will say this about his Clippers tenure. I got to at least give Doc credit for one thing. The good thing is he did an excellent job as kind of like the locker room mediator or guidance counselor when the Donald Sterling incident happened, when most of the players were rightfully irate about Donald Sterling being involved with the Clippers. After he made those remarks, and he did manage to help keep the chemistry of the team together. So to me, he does get credit there for that. He prevented it from being a distraction. And even with the whole Ben Simmons drama in Philly, flash forward to 2021-22 season, that could have been a huge distraction, but Doc at least found a way to keep the players motivated, good enough to at least make the playoffs. So, to his credit, yes, Doc Rivers has shown his good, but to me, Doc Rivers' legacy is he's the perfect example of the guy when there's no pressure on and there's no expectations. He coaches like Phil Jackson. But then when the pressure's on, he turns into Mo Cheeks, the head coach, basically. And I would say Steve Nash, but at least Doc Rivers, to his credit, managed to somehow pull out a career that spans over 2 decades. So I'll say this. Doc Rivers, his legacy as a head coach to me, I'm going to put it in a couple sentences. An excellent head coach at the start of his career, during excellent regular season head coach. Drastic playoff underachiever who swaps personalities with his regular season self and does a complete 180 when the pressure's on. That's exactly what Doc Rivers has consistently been throughout his coaching career. But, give me one second. And let's take a look at Exhibit A. Like we said, the Orlando Magic, some good regular seasons. Now, as far as the good regular season goes, the 2017-2018 Clippers, when they had no expectations, their stars were all gone from the Lob City era. You thought they were going back to Sterling era irrelevance. But they made it as the number 8 seed, lost to the Super Team Warriors, but took the Warriors to 6 games, to be fair. So he did earn some benefit of the doubt there. I'll tell you, man. So that's why I say Doc Rivers. When there's no expectations and no pressure, he looks like an all-time great coach, along the likes of Coach Phil Jackson, Coach Popovich, Coach Pat Riley and company. But then, when the pressure's on, there's expectations or they're potentially favorites, whether that be the Celtics with the Big Three, the Clippers with Lob City, or the Sixers with Embiid, he does a complete 180. He's like a Mo Cheeks or Vinny Del Negro or any of the other flop coaches for the Clippers long before he joined. And that's pretty much what it is for him right there. But we even saw with the Clippers, the 3-1 blown lead, I believe in 2015. Was it the second round against the Rockets, I believe? I believe it would. They were up 3-1 in the second round against the James Harden-led Rockets. And you thought this might be the Clippers' first Western Conference Finals, but they blew a 3-1 lead against a Rockets team they should have beat. Because they should have won that series. And they should have been the Clippers and Warriors in the 2015 Conference Finals. The Splash Brothers and Draymond and Iggy versus Lob City Clippers. Obviously, the Warriors would have won that series regardless because they were just that good. But the Clippers should have at least made it to the conference finals and played the Warriors, and I think the media would have enjoyed it more had it happened. It would have been more interesting, exciting matchup to see CP3, Blake, and DeAndre Jordan go against the Splash Brothers, Draymond, Andre, on the rise Warriors. But we didn't get that. And then 2020 with Paul George, Kawhi Leonard Clippers, it should have been Clippers and Lakers in the conference finals that year in the bubble, which would have been a huge ratings draw. Finally, after all these years, the Clippers and Lakers playing each other with something on the line. And ultimately, we never got that series because of another 3-1 blown lead. So there's always going to be those knocks against him. Now, to be fair, that doesn't make him a horrible head coach in itself, but it does make him the biggest underachiever in NBA history as far as head coaches go, and one of the biggest underachieving coaches in sports. Because, look, if Doc Rivers was truly a scrub the way a casual fan who only hears the rants would think he is, he would have been out of a coaching job a long time ago. He would have been a college coach of like a D2 school or whatever. he would have been long out as far as being a coach goes if he was truly that bad. So Doc Rivers, one of the better regular season coaches historically, but one of the biggest underachievers. And that's ultimately been his legacy. And at this point, I don't see his legacy as a coach improving. And really, I think Doc Rivers, he should retire. I think this time it should be it. Remember when the Sixers, he got let go from the Sixers. Initially, he didn't get a head coach offering. He was an announcer at ESPN for a little bit. And I think Doc could have actually been a decent announcer if he actually spent more time there. He could have been a decent analyst, actually, because then his ego's not necessarily in the way because he's not a coach anymore. He could actually be a decent analyst. So I think it would be just better for Doc Rivers' legacy, even for his own sake. As someone who's not a fan of him, just call it a day. Congratulations on 2008. Congrats on all the regular season wins. Congrats on the Hall of Fame induction, which is going to be widely debated. And it's going to be a future poll question on my community tab, so be on the lookout for that. But seriously, congratulations, Doc. Take some time, enjoy it with your grandkids. That's what he says he's doing, and I hope he's serious. I mean, maybe, there could be an analyst job opening for him, and I, even as someone who wasn't a fan of him as a coach, I wouldn't mind him as an analyst. He might actually be decent, but yeah, I think the sooner he just retires for good, the better. So it's like, yeah, congrats on the accomplishments, but time to let it go, Doc. And that's how I feel. But with that being said, we got the Doc Rivers part out the way, and we're getting ready for the NBA playoffs. But there is something I want to briefly discuss real quickly. Now, I've been avoiding this subject. I haven't been making videos about it. I've been one of the least active Eagles fans on here, along with Desert Eagle 90 and others. Well, to be fair, DE90 doesn't really do videos during the offseason, but the point I'm getting at is, with all due respect to my fellow Eagle content creators, I'm not active on this subject. I've made a few tweets about it, mentioned it a few times, but the reason I'm mentioning it now is because the last week was the first time we saw a potential sign that the Eagles might be trading A.J. Brown, because now I look at the Eagles' wide receiver room and see how much that room's increased since March and how there's more bodies in the wide receiver room now. Makes you got to wonder, are they going to pull the trigger on an A.J. Brown trade? Because why are they gearing up? Ask yourself. Why are they gearing up signing all these receivers? The Eagles say they're sticking by A.J. Brown, but look at the room. You got Here, I'll show you a close-up. You got A.J. Brown. Check. Hollywood Brown, Marquise Brown, who, to be fair, is an Eagles fan. He said he grew up a fan of the Eagles, McNabb, Andy Reid era. So that's a nice addition. Certainly morale boost. Bring a player who wants to be there. You got Elijah Moore, one of A.J. Brown's teammates from Ole Miss, who he has chemistry with. And Elijah Moore is a solid receiver. He's good for a number 2 or number 3 option. And you got Devontae Smith. You still got Quez Watkins, and then you got the Tavion Wicks, who's a solid receiver from the Packers. But when you look at the room, you got Devontae Smith, Elijah Moore, Davion Wicks, Hollywood Marquise Brown, A.J. Brown, Johnny Wilson. They're not keeping all these guys. There's no way they are. To me, I don't see why else you would be doing this. I don't see why else you would be doing this, because really, I just trying to think, what else would there be beside a trade? You don't need that many wide receivers on your roster. Danny Gray, why do you have all these guys in one room? To me, I'm thinking they might be gearing up on an A.J. Brown trade. Now, the Patriots have been a rumored team for the longest, and there's signs indicating, and this validates my belief now that they're going to pull the trade. It's been confirmed since that if they wait till after June 1st, this could be best for both parties, being the Eagles and the Patriots, to do. So that's why I believe the Eagles are gearing up, getting ready to make Devontae Smith their temporary number one receiver, bringing in backup options to help out guys like Hollywood, Elijah Moore, and Wicks, and all those guys. So I could see a trade being possible. Now, at first, I didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, look, don't believe the hype. It's not going to happen. But now, the good possibility it may happen. So, but we will have to wait and see. We still got the draft coming up in a few weeks. We got to see what the Eagles do, see what the Patriots do. I mean, who knows? Maybe another team could come in out of nowhere, basically, and be the steal team for A.J. Brown. But we got to wait and see, man. But I do believe it's more likely now. But hey, that's that, though. It is NBA playoff season, and like I said, we got this week is basically the opening act week with the play-ins. You got 2 games tonight, 2 games tomorrow. Tonight, you got the 2 teams. You got the Charlotte Hornets and the Miami Heat to start, and then out west to close. You got the Phoenix Suns hosting the Portland Trail Blazers. And then tomorrow, you got the 76ers at the Wells Fargo Center. Will be hosting the Orlando Magic. Short without Joel Embiid. And you still got Tyrese Maxey. Paul George looks like he's going to play. Edgecombe likely. But that's going to be, that may be a tough one. But well, you got that. And then to close it, then you got the Portland, and you got the Los Angeles Clippers, Golden State Warriors, and then you got the fill-in games for the 8 seed. The winner of the respective 7-8 games, or the loser of the 7-8 games in both respective conferences, play the winner of the 9 and 10 to determine the 8 seed. We'll talk about it more in a minute. Take a quick break, then your boy will be right back. We'll give you drop some predictions for the playoffs. So stay tuned, folks, because we're going to be heating up when I return. Steez Nation, your boy is back. And we're back. It's an exciting day because it's playing tournament time. Now, I've come on here and did a rhetorical rant of the week talking about the cons of the playing tournament. But to be fair, it does have its pros too. And one of the pros of the playing tournament is that it helps. It serves as a nice warm-up back, get the fans in the mood for playoffs. And for some teams that they may not be ready to contend yet, that are stuck at 9 or 10, if they at least make the playoffs, especially if it's a young team that's just starting to get it together, it gives them the opportunity to at least get the big game experience in. Like we saw the OKC Thunder, their first goal before they officially became contenders, they made it as a play-in team. They at least had that opportunity, but now we're getting ready for the actual playoffs itself. But real quickly, for all the Nikki Steez fans, I got a little something special for you coming around April 25th, which is my birthday. Here's a sneak peek. Yep, and now, so yes, on April 25th, I'll be dropping a little mini documentary series. I already filmed it. I already got it ready, so that'll be my present to you guys on late April. But now it is time to get to the main event of the show, if you will, or the draw of the show, whichever analogy you want to use. The undercard, opening acts have already been completed. So now, NBA playoff season, baby. Let's talk about it. So, first, let's do a preview of the play-in tournament. Now, I mentioned it. I mentioned the matchups, but haven't really got in depth and analyzed it. So we kick off tonight. We got tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Your boy Mitch will be live for this. I might stop by in his chat. You got the Miami Heat and the Charlotte Hornets in Charlotte, 9 versus 10 seed. The winner of that will play the loser of my Sixers versus Magic game tomorrow. And then will be one step closer to actually seeing the play out. But for this matchup now, on paper, the Hornets are the favorites. But if there's one game I could say where there could be an underdog winner, it could be the Miami Heat. Because remember, last year, that's right, last year, folks, the Miami Heat, as the 10th seed, won 2 games to make it to the playoffs as an 8 seed, only to get destroyed. But, hey, they still made it, so I wouldn't count I'm never going to count the Heat out come playing time, especially after last year. And usually this is where the Miami Heat star Bam Adebayo saves his best. It's a trade he picked up from the Jimmy Butler years that he's continued himself. We saw it last year in the play-in. It played a key role in them making it to the 8th seed. And now they play again, not to mention head-to-head, the Miami Heat have had their number. The Heat have beat them 3 times, so that's another reason you could put geared toward the Miami Heat as the favorites to potentially win this game, and probably will win, even though you got Con Kneppel, LaMelo Ball playing really good. You got a pretty solid team there, but you still got Bam Adebayo balling out. Now, I don't think he's going to be dropping close to 70 or having another record breaker, not in this game. However, I wouldn't. Bam Adebayo, like we said, and the Miami Heat sometimes overachieve in these play-in situations or with low expectations in the playoffs. You see the regular season, you had the Heat 128-120, 126-108. The Hornets did beat the Heat, so I stand corrected. It was 2 times. And then you go back, but then the Heat beat the Hornets early in the regular season. But this was also early in the season before the Hornets caught fire. Now, the Charlotte Hornets, to their credit, after starting off the season on an absolutely dreadful note, looking like the same old Charlotte Hornets, Mitch calling for LaMelo Ball to get traded, they've turned the tables around. LaMelo Ball heated up at the start of the new year. Con Kneppel made a strong case, potential for Rookie of the Year. But here's a few fun facts about this game. So Miami closed the regular season with a 143-117 win over the resting Atlanta Hawks. Jacquez Jr. had 26 points off the bench, while Adebayo and Norman Powell had 25 apiece. Not to mention Norman Powell, who had a playoff experience with the Clippers recently, now being a member of the Miami Heat. He could be another X factor for this team as well. And Powell averages Miami 21.7 points. And plus, like I said, in the arcs, success of the tournament. And Spoelstra's coming in with Coach Spoel with this mindset of it's game 7 for them. Meaning that and it is. Because the Miami Heat are the 10th seed. It's like a game 7. If you lose, over. And then it's crazy because so that's the advantage the Heat have. Now, the one advantage the Hornets have to their credit is 3-point shooting. You got the top 2 3-point shooters in the NBA during the regular season in Con Kneppel and LaMelo Ball. So they're looking low-key like the resurrection of the Splash Brothers, like the East Coast. Pretty soon we might be calling Con Kneppel and LaMelo Ball the East Coast Splash Duo. Pretty soon. But now for the Miami Heat, man. But now things have changed, man. But now we got to see what happens come playoff time. Everything's on the line. Now the game is in Charlotte, so the Hornets are the projected favorites in this one. But remember, the Miami Heat last season, so I won't count them out yet. I feel like when you look at the matchup, the one advantage that the Hornets truly have is 3-point shooting. And they do have the home court advantage too, so that gives them that 6 man, so to say, and that gives them that advantage. And because complete, so you got, but here's the big advantages the Miami Heat have. They're phenomenal at drawing fouls and they're phenomenal in the paint. I don't see how the Charlotte Hornets are going to play with them in that regard. That's going to be tough. And even Kobe White saying, like, hey, guys, we got to play some defense. But we'll ultimately have to see. So I actually, man, I'm leaning toward the Heat in this one. I'm going to take the Heat in the upset, even though. But we got to actually wait and see, though, what's going to happen, though. Because we've seen LaMelo Ball's Hornets in the play-in, but now you got Knuppel, Brandon Miller on the stage. What are they going to do? That's going to be the curious question. So while the Heat have the experience factor, hey, the key for the Hornets, to feed off their home crowd, and we don't know what another factor is. We don't know what's going to happen with Knuppel, but and you got Mets as a Hornets fan who is streaming this with Mitch tonight. So, but the starting lineups for this one, as of now, are for the Miami Heat. You got Davion Mitchell, Tyler Hero, Norman Powell, and Bam Adebayo. But for the Hornets, it's going to be LaMelo, Knuppel, your backcourt, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and last but not least, Moses Diaby for the Charlotte Hornets. So I think when it comes to the starters, overall, the Heat have the edge over the Hornets in starters. So for the Hornets, their biggest key to win, the Nicky Stees dub East Coast Splash duo of Knuppel and there we go. Yeah, I'm saying the East Coast Splash duo is going to really have to shine in Knuppel and LaMelo for them to win this series, because otherwise, I got the Heat winning this, and that's going to be the X factor right there. It's all going to come down to Knuppel and LaMelo, but we'll ultimately have to see what happens in that one. And then you got, to close it out, for this evening, you go out west, you got the Phoenix Suns at home going against the Portland Trailblazers. This one here is an interesting matchup. We didn't see this one coming at all. If we go back to the beginning of the season, if you would have asked us, who do you think would likely be in the play-in tournament? You would have said, you would have projected that probably the Warriors would be in the play-in tournament, but maybe as a 7 or 8 seed. Or you would have thought the Sacramento Kings would at least have been in the play-in tournament instead of being a bottom feeder team. You would have thought that those teams would have a shot. The Clippers are a team you may have considered a potential play-in team, or even the T-Wolves, because we know they're not the strongest regular season core in the world, but the Phoenix Suns being a regular season, that's a bit of a Phoenix Suns as a play-in team's a bit of a shocker. And the Blazers, I don't think we really expected the Blazers to take off this year. So you didn't expect Demes to have a really good season and all of a sudden take off, and now, he's just balling. Imagine that. The Washington Wizards gave up on another potential future star. But now, hey, the Portland Trailblazers look like they have a star. But for the Phoenix Suns, I wasn't expecting this. We thought maybe, at best, I was thinking maybe a 10 seed at best. But to their credit, the Phoenix Suns, you've had Gillespie. Gillespie's had a surprising good season in Phoenix. It goes back to what Blaze said, that sometimes a player might need to try and fail a few times first. They might fit, man. When a player finally finds the right fit, they can excel. And that's exactly, hold on. All right, folks. Sorry about that. I just had to mute something real quickly. And we got a jet over top our heads here making loud noises. The air show is happening right outside as we're live. But for the Phoenix Suns have been unexpected. Speaking of unexpected transactions, you've had Dylan Brooks, to his credit, has really stepped up and played up to some of his expectations this season. Despite not really having a high ceiling going into the season, Brooks was thought more as a role player and a trash talker, but Dylan Brooks has really stepped up and became a bit of a potential star of his own. Now, if he can just get his head right, then imagine what Dylan Brooks could really do. He could really excel. But the Phoenix Suns, you've had Devin Booker, who's been in this situation before, who has big game experience from the CP3 days from the finals run of 2021. Devin Booker knows what it's like to play in big game situation. He's been the leader in points of this team, but you also got, don't forget, another effects factor, Mark Williams, who leads the team on average rebounds per season. You got Jordan Goodward, but you've also had Dylan Brooks, who's been averaging second, about 20 points per game. You've had Jalen Green, who's come over in the KD tree. He's been a good addition for them, averaging close to 18 per game. You even had Gillespie's been a pretty good addition to this team. And to their credit, the Phoenix Suns have shocked everyone, exceeded expectation. They took advantage of the Sacramento Kings being old and beat down. The Golden State Warriors. Oh, man. I'll get to them in a minute, but they haven't been the same team. And the Phoenix Suns have surprised everyone. They took advantage of the Clippers' early season struggles. And now, you best believe, Phoenix Suns are at least a potential force to reckon with in this playing game. They got the home court advantage in this one, so I got them here. So I got them in that one, home court advantage there. But let's be fair, we got to take a look at the Portland Trail Blazers. I remember we talked about this on the Pick and Roll podcast before you had Jeremy Grant start to take off. Dr. J, 21. Or no, sorry, it's Embiid, 21. Yeah, it's an Embiid jersey right there, number 21. And you've had Dene's taken off, had a star year. Blaze talked about there was some potential with him, and now you see it paying off. He's averaged over 24 per game. You've had Klingon averaging between 11 and 12 boards per game. You also had Shannon Sharpsman playing a key role, doing gritty work with steals. And you have, of course, Drew Holiday adds that experience factor, that veteran that they need. And I got to say, man, Drew Holiday is probably the best sixth man in the NBA this decade. Everywhere he's played, he's been made a positive difference. Drew Holiday, to me, is the best sixth man of the 2020s. He did it for Milwaukee when he came in. He was a great addition that helped the Bucks win the 2021 NBA Finals. A few years later on the Boston Celtics, he was a key factor in that 2024 Finals run and win. And now with the Portland Trail Blazers, a team that didn't have high expectations going into the season, he was the fourth best scorer on the team, and he was averaging about 6 assists, between 4 to 5 rebounds per game. So Drew Holiday has been vital, and I'd say the best sixth man of this decade, because you just look at that Drew Holiday effect. Every team he's played for, he's played a key role in making that team better than you would expect. So it's time to give Drew Holiday his flowers. And you also got Scoot Henderson's emerged as a solid role player himself. So you look at the Hornets roster and how they've been doing this season, you're like, man, you actually got not the Hornets, the Trailblazers this season. They're not at their peak. They're not living up to their glory days of the Bill Walton and then followed by the Clyde Drexler years. However, the Trailblazers have something going, and they're relevant again, even without Damian Lillard, who a lot of people forget. Damian Lillard's he's back on the team. He hasn't played due to injury, but Dame time is still back in Portland. If he comes back next season, he's going to have a good core behind him. But with that being said, enough with the praise, though. Now, as far as the matchup itself goes, I'd say in Phoenix, the Suns are the home team. They got their guys playing. I'll give them the edge in this one and say they get the win, and the Suns would clinch the 7th seed to play the San Antonio Spurs. But I do think it can be a good matchup. But then I would say, to be fair, I do think the Blazers, I do believe the Blazers go on to win the next game after that and get the 8th seed. So the starting lineups for today projected, it's Phoenix Suns, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, or two of their guys. So you got, for Portland, Drew Holiday, Tumani Khmer, Scoot Henderson, Dene, and Donovan Klingland. For the Blazers, for the Suns, you got Jalen Green, Jordan Goodwin, D-Book, Dylan, and Mark Williams. That's going to be the starting lineups for the two teams tonight, but I'm going to give the Suns the edge in this one and say they win this game. And then that brings us to tomorrow. We've got kicking it off tomorrow, close to 8 p.m. My team, the Philadelphia 76ers, will be the host to the Orlando Magic, who had a huge fall from grace from looking like they were going to be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. Some people even had them the number 1 seed entering the season to now being the 8th seed. Going against the 76ers, who have exceeded expectations to some degree. We thought the 76ers, when we saw that Embiid was in and out of the lineup, we thought, okay, this team isn't really going anywhere. But to the 76ers' credit, they have managed to at least make it to the 7th seed, with Tyrese Maxey leading the way. Him having himself a phenomenal season. We also have the emergence of VJ Edgecombe as one of the young, exciting players in the year and a potential future star. And the Sixers, so they've been better than expected, but here's where their weak point lies. Their record against teams above 500. They struggle to consistently win those games. And now we'll have to see how that fares out for them. But I would say based off momentum, it's going to be, momentum-wise, I'd lean toward the Sixers being the home team. But then again, they will be playing without Embiid. So I don't know, because it's going to be tough. But here's the one benefit the Magic have over them. The Orlando Magic have the benefit of having guys, being a team that can get to the free throw line and constantly draw fouls, and that could be a deciding factor in this game right here. Now I want to see how the Sixers fare without Embiid. It's going to be the thing they're going to have to overcome. Now, I would lean toward the Sixers on this one, objectively, because of the experience factor. They have a little more experience in these situations. Paul George, he's been in the playoffs before. He's had the benefit of playing for the Indiana Pacers and the Los Angeles Clippers. But the question is, can he stay healthy? Can he stay in the lineup consistently? All you need is just one good game to get the 7th seed. But this has the makings to be a really good matchup, folks. Really, this does. Because I'm looking at it on one hand, I feel like benefits for the Sixers. If Maxey can go off and have himself a really good game and do so consistently, not just show up in the second half and ball out in the second half, because while Sixers have taken advantage of it throughout the season, it's not sustainable in the long haul. And we're going to have to manage the absence of Embiid, which is going to be an interesting factor. But then here's the concern. The Magic, this is going to be the first time they're fully healthy in a while, and it's going to be tough right there in that one because now the Magic are actually being healthy. I don't know. That's going to be tough. You got Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner. They get to the line more often. They're better in the paint. That might be a tough matchup for the Sixers to overcome. I would love. Now, I obviously want the Sixers to win, to prevail, and get the 7th seed. But realistically, I could see the Magic winning this game and them clinching the 7th seed, then the Sixers having to play the winner of the Heat-Hornets game later tonight. Now, I hope the Sixers do win this game, especially if Maxey, Paul George go off. Those are the two main guys you expect in a play-in situation. And then if even Edgecombe can just be solid, he doesn't have to be great tomorrow, but if he can be solid, you got an opportunity. Now, on to the but as of right now, a healthy Magic have the slight edge. But then we get to the final game, Clippers versus Warriors. Now, Mitch is leaning towards giving the Warriors the edge because Steph Curry. But here's the thing. Let's face it. The Clippers are a 37-win team, and the Clippers of 2025 and 26, their biggest asset was Jimmy Butler. Going back to the trade deadline last year when they acquired him, the Warriors relied heavily on Jimmy Butler. Remember last season when right around the trade deadline, Warriors were like 11th, and it looked like we were counting them out. But then Jimmy Butler came in, and they started winning more games. And all of a sudden now, those Warriors made the playoffs as a 7th seed, won their playing game, really rallied strong behind Jimmy Butler, and actually upset the Houston Rockets in the opening round. But then this year, turn around this year, Jimmy Butler goes down with a season-ending injury. Warriors fell down face first and fell off the map without their star, without Jimmy Butler. And that's why I got to give the edge to the Clippers in this one. Now, the Clippers are a team that relies heavily on Kawhi Leonard to be the guy doing the work. They have a winning record with him this season. And then, so they got their main guy who's been the consistent factor for them when they win games. Unfortunately, the Warriors don't have that. Steph Curry, they still got Steph Curry, but the real difference factor for this current Warriors team has been Jimmy Butler being on the court. They don't have that. And yes, you have Steph Curry, who we've seen win 4 championships. Him alongside Clay and Draymond Green were the common denominator through all 6 finals appearances during that era. But we have seen the Warriors be vulnerable in the play-in tournament. Remember 2021? They lost to the Lakers, and then they lost the game for the 8th seed against the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies got a big upset over the Warriors in 2021. So we have seen the Clippers. They are vulnerable in the play-in tournament, and not the Clippers, the Warriors. And considering they're no Jimmy Butler, you're trying to make a miracle happen. You're going to be going against the Kawhi-led Clippers team, who, mind you, has still won games. And Kawhi Leonard, when he's healthy, has been balling out for the Clippers this season. And he's going to be the guy playing in this. You also got John Collins as well, who's been a great addition for them, especially. And you got Brooke Lopez, who's still a solid addition on the defensive side of the ball. You still got Derrick Jones Jr. When he plays, he's still a decent piece. And so you still got a solid team there. Whereas the Warriors, I don't know. I mean, it is the play-in tournament, so I wouldn't count the Warriors out, but I think most likely it's going to be the Clippers winning this game. So as of right now, so predictions. I'll go with the Heat to upset the Hornets. Actually, no, I'll actually go with the Hornets to get the victory over the Heat. So I'll go Hornets to get the victory over the Heat. 76. I'll go Magic to beat the 76ers. Then Sixers versus Hornets for the 8th seed in the East. I'll go with the Hornets winning that one. Now, I'll go with the Sixers winning that one. Hornets have had a solid run, but I just don't think it's their time yet. So it'll be 2 versus 7 in the East. It'll be Magic versus Celtics, and then Pistons versus Sixers 1 versus 8. Out West, we're going to have 7 versus 8. I got the Suns winning, so the Suns will get the 7th seed and play the Spurs in the opening round, renewing an old 2000s playoff rivalry. Also got the Clippers beating the Warriors, and then for the 8th seed, I got the Blazers beating the Clippers, and it'll have the Trailblazers versus the defending champ OKC Thunder the opening round. So now predictions for the opening round based on it laid out. In the East, I got the Pistons beating the Sixers, man. Just got to be realistic. To me, first round's the Sixers ceiling this year. If they do make it that far, either the Pistons or Celtics are going to have their number. So give me the Pistons to win that series there. Then I got the Celtics defeating the Magic. The other series, I'll go with the Knicks to beat the Hawks, but in either 6 or 7 games. It'll be a really good series. And then for the Cavs and Raptors, I'm going to go with my upset and have the Raptors win that series in 7 in the East in the opening round. And then out West opening round, OKC Thunder cruise through the Clippers. And then you got the Spurs take care of business against the Suns. You also got Rockets versus Lakers. I'm going to go with the Rockets to win that series because we don't know if Luka's going to play. And even if he does, is he going to actually be healthy and fully suited to play? I don't know, man. I have my doubts. I don't see it. So I got the Rockets win that one. Nuggets versus T-Wolves. I know you can never count Ant-Man and the T-Wolves out in the opening round, but I feel like this year the Nuggets will put the past playoff jinx behind them. They'll get the win this time in the opening round and move on past the Timberwolves. So those are some of my predictions for the opening round. You guys, make sure that you guys can drop your predictions as well. Let me know who you have winning the play-in, and let me know who you got winning the opening round. Looks like we're a little bit short right now of our expectation, but so we still got, but ultimately, we're just going to have to sit back, enjoy the ride, because the NBA playoffs, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not a Sweet 16. It's not single elimination like the NFL. First, you got to get through the play-in this week. Then the best of 7 series start after that. So I can say is relax, enjoy the ride, have some fun with it, because it's going to be a fun series. And plus, the weather's warming up, so if you get the opportunity to step outdoors, take advantage of the opportunity and enjoy that outdoors. So again, thank you guys for stopping in for episode 55 of the 3-Point Blitz. We're not going anywhere just yet. We're doing this live on my channel on the Hardcore Sports Network. And speaking of the Hardcore Sports Network, real quickly, brief shout out to your guys, Mitch and Mets, who are going to be streaming this game later. I might stop by in the chat with that one. Tomorrow, I may or may not do an improv stream for the Sixers and the Sixers game tomorrow, so I might do that, but there's no guarantee. What I will do, certainly, though, is I will definitely stop by for the chat. So, Mitch, I'll stop by, support you later. Looking forward to your game. Looking forward to your stream. But before we get going, folks, we do got briefly touch up. We're going to have the 2-minute recap to close this thing out, which has become our new segment. So without any further, I'm waiting until we get to 117, and then that'll be a full 2 minutes right there. So we're going to do the 2-minute recap. Then we're going to call it after that. So it's a little bit shorter than the usual episodes, but with next week, with us getting close to the draft, we'll have some more mock drafts, be able to have some games to recap, both the play-in games and a few of the early games of the playoffs. So we'll definitely promise you all more for next week. We were just a little bit short, but hey, either way, we still did this, folks. So let's do the 2-minute recap. We know all the Mike Vrabel controversy's been going on. Now you got Diana's resigned from the Athletic after those photos have emerged of her. And, well, all I can say is she shouldn't have got herself caught up in that situation in the first place with an NFL head coach. And ultimately, she's got no one to blame but herself. And ultimately, guess what? You got to remember something. Let's be real. There still is some degree of misogyny in the sports world, particularly when it comes to journalism. There's that view, and this might be partially true, partially false, that women are only in journalism for the money, which to some degree is true to some degree. But there are also certain reporters who actually do have takes, who actually have a clue what they're talking about and don't fit that stereotype. But speaking of women, you did have the WNBA draft was last night. No, Key in the building did a live stream for that. I decided to give her a shout out. You got Ozzie Fudd from the UConn Huskies was selected by the Dallas Wings. You also had Lauren Betts went as well. Lauren Betts, who was the star from UCLA, she was taken by the Mystics 4th. Now, will Lauren Betts be able to add some intrigue? She might add a little bit of intrigue, but we got to remember the two cash cows for that league, for whatever that's worth, are Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. And with Angel Reese getting traded to the Atlanta Dream, if they end up being a better team, that could be good revenue-wise for them to have your two Golden Girls, for lack of a better term, teams going far in the playoffs, for whatever that's worth. But it's really about it, man. We just no real other main headlines to talk about. Except just say this, Vrabel kind of gets the pass in that deal because he's the more cemented name with him and Diana in that situation. Vrabel and Diana. Vrabel kind of gets the pass. That's the politics of being the bigger name. So, but I don't want to say too much about it because I didn't really want to get into that drama. Let's face it. So I'll leave it at that, guys. Thanks for tuning in. That's episode 55 of the 3-Point Blitz Down. At a later start time than usual, but it still happened. You've got NBA playing games tonight. We're going to have the spring training, the opening act, the undercard, if you will, for the NBA playoffs begins tonight. So let's have some fun. Let's just see what happens. And we'll definitely have some more to discuss next week. So stay tuned. Until next time, peace. Trust the process.